welcome. This is our opportunity to catch up with canine experts to find out how we can support one another here at Canine Care Hub. I'm really excited because today I've got Lana from Soco, Fairy Dog Mother. Great name. Lana, let's start from the beginning. Where did the name come from and how did you get into what it is that you do?
Oh gosh, the name. So I changed my life and I moved back home to Southampton. But before living in London and getting my little man, I used to live in somewhere a little bit more exotic, which was South Beach, Miami.
Very
And
nice.
and they used to shorten that to SoBe. And I thought, well, I don't want to be just fairy dog mother because there's loads of those out there and it's going to be really difficult to do like a website and all the social handles and everything. So I thought South Coast fairy dog mother, and I thought that's a bit of a mouthful. So hi, Lana Smith, Soco fairy dog mother, bringing a bit of that Miami heat down to the rainy UK at the moment. Yeah, so that's who I am, what but not necessarily what I do. So I'm on the only Ofqual regulated canine nutrition course at the moment, doing my L3 with Caroline Griffiths.
I
And
love her. She's great.
yes, and I'm helping her and I'm learning from her. And I'm also going to be doing some lectures for the class on, drum roll please, dogs with gluten intolerance. Yay! Yeah, so that's what I specialize in. And it's all because I couldn't find the help that I needed. My vets, all of them just said, oh, we'll just go gluten free, but it's not quite that easy. And I have a very sensitive boy, and so I follow on all the Border Terrier groups on Facebook, and I think every week I see about 10 dogs with those guardians suffering, asking the same questions, just seeing all the same symptoms. And I had the opportunity to retrain and actually do something that I'm passionate about. And I did jump on it. It took me a while, but I did eventually got there. And I just thought I need to be the person that can help these people because I have the experience and I've literally seen the full spectrum of everything. And all dogs are different. But I've seen it all just with my little man.
Tell us about your little man. He's a border terrier, right?
He is,
What's his name?
yes. He's called Augustus.
Oh.
Big name, little dog, and he's just turned 6. And I got him from a really wonderful breeder, what I thought was wonderful. I even called up the Kennel Club and checked back in the day. And he was planned. I collected him the day before lockdown. And it was obviously a really different time. All the vets were not closed, but you couldn't go in there. They weren't really seeing people except emergency cases. There's all these things kind of
Mm.
going on. There were no puppy classes. There was no trains or children on scooters or bikes or any of the other things. And so I just muddled my way through, thinking, "Oh, I've had dogs all my life. How hard can it be?" And turns out really hard. So, I was lucky enough to get a new neighbour when I lived in London, and she really supported me. And I wish she'd have just grabbed me and shaken me and just told me what was going on. But you have to let people work these things out. But she supported me to push my vet and push my vet and push my vet and push my vet. And I wasn't really getting anywhere. So I eventually got somewhere. And it was actually on a Facebook group because
Mm.
people kept saying to me, oh, it sounds like Spike's disease. And I thought, he doesn't shake. And they started talking about all these other symptoms, and I didn't want a broken dog. I tried all these foods, and he was so fussy, and it was just so difficult trying to get food in him. I tried everything you can imagine, plus I had all the behavioural issues then with a puppy and an adolescent, even more so, really intensified. And my wonderful neighbour said, why don't you get some professional help? And I was like, I don't know. Professional help dog trainers, how much help can they really be? Turns out quite a lot. So, so it all kind of started from there, and it just set me up on this trajectory. And I've been really lucky, A, to have her as a neighbour, but then B, to have a really supportive just group of people really on Facebook. And also my kind of fairy dog mother is a lady who is a huge breed advocate, and she's spearheaded the Slem Shaken puppy genetic test as well. And I'm supporting her and the other admins and researchers and specialists on collecting all the data for this gluten intolerance genetic test for Border Terriers.
Amazing. Didn't know testing went so far. Having being a celiac myself, this is how Lana and I kind of connected. It was at a what is it? Rachel Spencer's Pet Planner group.
Yeah, just like a bit of a networking, mirror
Yeah.
working morning thing.
Yeah, it was I don't know, just had a really good energy, and I was like, I need to get Lana on. I think she's got some great insights for us. And yeah, we were talking about me being celiac, back in the day when my mum got diagnosed, she was actually really, really unwell. So she was 30. She'd gone completely skinny, but had like a pot belly because they just didn't know what was wrong with her at that stage. And they had to operate to take gut lining out to then do biopsies to find out that she was celiac, and she used to get gluten-free bread on prescription. I remember as a little girl, we never ate out because mum could never eat at any restaurants. And yeah, she had this gluten-free bread that was awful. It just fell apart. It came in a tin, like it was just rank. So when I found out that I was celiac at 21, I literally phoned my mum and I was like, Mom, I think I might be celiac too. And she was like, yeah, we'll just stop eating gluten then.
It's more than that, right?
Yeah, but I feel really blessed because I now live in an age where I can eat at every restaurant pretty much because people know what it is, the education's there, and as long as
Yes.
as long as they know about cross contamination and things like that, like actually I do okay. So I don't feel that hard off with it. Um, but I think tell me if I'm right or wrong here. From what I'm hearing, because I actually attended Caroline Griffith's nutrition expo last year, um, testing for dogs, it just seems behind the times. Like it's not the first thing that comes to mind when a dog has a challenge. What's your experience of that? Am I barking up the right tree, as it were?
Yes, you absolutely are. So the issues that I had with my vets and my specialists in London were that he was recommended to be vaccinated, and the vaccinations didn't line up with the breeder's vaccinations. So he was double vaccinated. He had flea, tick, and worm treatments all the time. And then he'd be a bit bad, and then he'd be all right again. And the vets would say, oh, well, if he's all right, then that's okay. And it just kind of got worse. And then I would be taking pictures of dog poop with blood in it and emailing it to my vet. They got a lot of really delightful emails. But by the time they got back to me, they said, oh, how is he? And I said, oh, he's okay again. And they were like, oh, well, just keep an eye on it. They weren't really that concerned when they absolutely should have been. So I pushed them again, and I went back and had lots of blood tests. He had low folate, low B12, which are both classic kind of blood signals of malabsorption from gut issues. So then they said, oh, I think he's probably got IBD. Just put him on this hypoallergenic diet. Well, he wouldn't even eat it. I couldn't even get it in him. He just blank refused. He was fussy anyway.
They
I
are, aren't they,
tried.
to breed?
Well, yes. So I honestly believe that obviously dogs are super smart and they have this zoopharmacognosy ability. And I honestly believe that he could smell what was in there was making him sick.
Mm.
And so if a dog doesn't want to eat a food, I will not make that dog eat that food. There will be a reason, some kind of contamination, something like that. And people say, oh, just pick it up or leave it down, or you just let them know that that's what they've got to eat. But actually, no, I think dogs are quite naturally quite foodie and they should want to eat. And if it's good for them, then they should do it. There's the flip side of that coin when some dogs are just really foodie, will just eat anything, and oh gosh, and then they're just stuck and they're really poorly. So I didn't have that, luckily. I suppose luckily. So Augustus was on antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, antidepressants, antibiotics. He was on anti-anorexia drugs, anti-sickness drugs. He was on everything to try and get him hungry and keep the food inside him. But we had no idea what damage that food was doing inside him.
Mm.
So he had then more blood tests for Addison's disease and things like that, which can show up as other markers. And it's really commonly misdiagnosed as it's like either Addison's or like non-Addison's, but Addison's. And IBS, again, another classic, and they just say, oh, go grain free. But it's not that easy because the dog food industry is a mess and everyone is at each other's throats. And everyone's like, don't feed raw, don't feed kibble, don't like whatever. But a lot of the dry foods and the wet foods, some of them, are just the same reconstituted stuff, just processed slightly differently with synthetic vitamins and minerals and things like that added, which aren't bioavailable, that can't be absorbed by the dogs, that just ticks a checkbox for the manufacturers to say they're doing something, like it's in there, not actually to prove that it's actually any benefit for the dog. So I've had to have a really deep and thorough understanding of every single ingredient, what it means, how it works, because there are so many grain-free foods out there, so many. I can't even begin to name them. They're pretty much every single one, bar about 3 I found. So they're grain-free, and they either have grains like full-blown barley in, which, as you know, I know
The
that
worst.
tastes hello gluten,
Yeah.
um,
Alert, alert.
and brewer's yeast, and even the likes of different dog that say they're fresh and they're grain free, they still use brewer's yeast, and they say that it's in such a small amount that it doesn't do the dog any harm. However, having given my dog this brand of dog food along with pretty much every other brand of dog food, I can confirm that this does add up and build up over time, especially if every single meal your dog is eating this.
Mm.
So I am not celiac, okay? Oh, I love me some gluten. And it doesn't have the same effect, but I've had to learn so much from celiac people
Mm.
because the gluten intolerance in dogs, is it genetic? TBC. We're erring on the side of probably.
Mm.
And there are known bloodlines who carry this dominant genetic trait. So it's a dominant gene. So even if it's a crossbreed, so if you have, I've seen Cypriot rescues that are gluten sensitive.
Mm.
Um, and it's really hard to get out of the breed. Um, some breeds admit that it's a problem, like the Irish setters, for example. But unfortunately, that's not the case with Border Terriers. And so many people just stick them on a hypo diet. Hypo doesn't mean anything because I can tell you that my dog is very intolerant to the ingredients in hypoallergenic diets.
Mm. Interesting.
Um, and then they just medicate with like Apoquel, Cytopoint, or there's like a new Apoquel. There's so many drugs, and they all come with side effects. And
Mm.
I tried them. Augustus has had absolutely everything. And it got to a point where the Cytopoint wasn't working, the Apoquel wasn't working. He was only 1.5 years old. And I was thinking, how is this sustainable?
Yeah. As a
Um,
sidebar about the science, do you mind if I just do my little explanation for anyone that's listening to this going, I don't really know what celiac does. What does it like? Okay, I understand gluten, I understand it makes them ill, but like, what does it do? And why does your Border Terrier, even just that slight bit of protein in that food, why it affected his gut? So,
yes.
a celiac or someone with gluten sensitivity, um, we've got villi in our stomach. They're like fingers, like this. And gluten, when you're a celiac, it's the protein that affects your gut lining. And if you absorb that gluten, your gut lining affects it by shrinking back, which then stops absorption. It takes I only know in humans. In humans, it takes 4 days for them to grow back. So that's 4 days of missing out of vital nutrients. So yeah, protein can come from oat, wheat, rye, and barley. And so that's what we're looking for. It's the protein that are a celiac or someone or a dog with gluten sensitivity. That's what we're looking at. So that's why that's so fascinating, Lana. I've not had a dog that's gone through this, but I would have thought straight away, okay, just go grain free. Like I think they even put gluten free on packaging and things like that. And even as a celiac, we've got to be really careful. They can be marked wheat free, and then it's like it will come with like rolled oats or something like that, and yeah, it's a big issue. But yeah, it's good to know the science behind it. It's the villi that's in their stomach that's shrinking back, which is why they get in that blood, and that the illness of that comes up both ends, to put it nicely. It's not
Yes.
very nice for an owner to go through to have a dog that's that poorly, I can imagine.
No, it's quite heartbreaking.
Mm.
And my mental health suffers terribly from it. And I just don't think that people could grasp, like my family, my partner, so many people just think, oh, he's all right. And I'm like, no, he's not all right. I'm not sleeping. He's up. We're eating grass. We're being sick. There's bloody poops. He's being really reactive. He doesn't want to get up. He's in pain. He's exhibiting these classic pain behaviors like head bobbing and gulping and lip licking and stretching and looking really sad, and all these inflammation markers, like he gets a really goopy eye and his nose is dry and he can't move, and he suddenly stops and sits because like the pain and the cramp, he physically can't move. Or he'll be just relaxing and suddenly look at his back end like, what was that? And I feel like it's probably like a shooting shock down through his nervous system. And I've had to look into the symptoms for humans to be able to understand what's going on inside him, because they can't tell us. And the brain fog, the depression, like all the everything. And I'm thinking, oh, so he's not ignoring me being a little monkey, like he's literally struggling,
Mm.
and I think that some people think that a firmer hand can be helpful, when I know that it just can't. Like, imagine if you're either really hungover or, just really poorly. You're really sick and you're not feeling very well, and someone like knocks you down the side of the head, like snap out of it. Like, you physically can't.
Mm.
So they need a lot more looking after. I was really lucky that my previous job was a charity and they were quite supportive. But I don't think even then anyone can really grasp like the severity of
Mm.
everything. And I have nightmares. And I had a nightmare. I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning the other day, having palpitations in a cold sweat. And it was because I was dreaming that I'd come in from looking after someone else's dog, and my boyfriend, who does cook but doesn't bake, had decided that he wanted to bake a cake, and there was flour all over the kitchen and dust everywhere, and the dogs were walking through it, and I was like, oh. he can't breathe, like the panic. I'm like, he's going to be so ill. And I woke up like, oh, not real. I couldn't get back to sleep because my cortisol was so spiked and I was so stressed out about it. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, why is my life like this? I don't know whether you have that as a celiac.
No, like I'm grateful that no, that's not doesn't enter my subconscious. Uh,
I'm glad.
in that way, bless you. That sounds awful. You were
Yeah.
talking about pain markers. If
Yes.
you're a pet professional and you're talking about, a dog being, a little bit naughty, being a monkey, imagine if you're like a dog groomer on a table or a physio trying to do some work on a dog. Physio is already quite educated in this sense, but what things should we look out for that's a marker of pain? And do you have anything that can help us further?
Yeah. So I do have a webinar which I can give. I have a whole presentation about Border Terriers and pain markers and things like that. Mostly it's around an inability to settle. They have this just displacement behavior where they just don't know what to do with themselves and they can't really keep still, like whether it's constantly asking to play all the time because they need to move to kind of support their lymphatic drainage and things like that, get their system moving, get things flowing, get it out of them. And my boy used to bounce off the walls and it was wild. And barking, so dogs that just bark, like your fussy eating and refusal is when they really know I just can't have this, it's really not going to make me feel very well. And then you've got your kind of internal like systematic inflammation markers. So all dogs are different and they can be very different. I've seen dogs getting kind of hot spots, or my boy gets a goopy eye or an itchy ear. They get the ear infections, the yeast overgrowth, and it can go to both ears, dry nose. They can not want to be touched. They can be really sensitive on the gut. That can also expand to not wanting a harness on because of how it touches underneath their tummy when they're so sensitive and delicate. In all the pain. Hiccups early in the morning and reflux can also be a symptom because there's that imbalance in the microbiome, which is the bugs that live in the villi. If the villi aren't there, the bugs aren't there, you get the reflux and the burps and the everything, and it's not good. Your strongest symptoms that the vets tend to go on is it's like their stomach, their tummy sounds like a washing machine. It's like raw, 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 like it literally growls, and they're looking pretty sad about it. They might just want to take themselves off in a dark, quiet room, and you can feel their guts actually spasming as well. And the first time I think I realised what was going on with Augustus, I think he was about 3 months old, and he came around the corner of my sofa through the door, and he looked a bit drunk. And I was like, what the hell is that? So I took a video of it and I sent it to my neighbour who was doggy first aid trained, and she was like, send that to your vet immediately. I don't know what that is. But I was so petrified that I'd done something to do to him, or he was going to get taken off me. It was like the RSPCA or something like that. I was absolutely petrified. I didn't really know what to do. The vets just said, oh, that's interesting, bring him in. And then he was fine again. So they were like, oh, he's fine, off you go.
Mm.
And it was really, really hard. So there's those kind of signs and symptoms. I've also seen other dogs get hot spots or like red patches. One of them gets it right above her bum hole.
Oh.
So luckily she's a bull terrier, so you can see it very clearly because that tail stands up a lot. But I always like lift her tail up if I can and see what's going on inside her, what inflammation is going on, what behavior am I going to have to put up with? Is she going to be very excited and not be able to manage her emotions at all, constantly trigger stacking, reactive, not listening, like the ears turn off, the brain completely disappears because that amygdala pathway is just triggered from the pain. It's really hard, and everyone knows their own dog, but when you have a puppy, it's really hard to know because they have teething problems and growth pains, and they haven't been taught appropriate behaviors and things like that, so it's really hard to overlook and miss and that kind of thing. So I have my presentation that I do. I've also created some articles on my website, socofairy.mother.com. Shameless plug. But there's lots on there. And the one thing that you need to do is have a Gluten test done. Now, vets are charging up to about £450 for this blood test. I know, what hashtag vets bills is going on here? But there is an independent lab, and it's the only other independent lab. It's called Laboklin, Laboklin, and the Laboklin UK is absolutely fantastic, and they do the blood test. So they process the blood test for £96, which is under £100. And if the vets or a vet nurse can draw the blood and spin the serum, you just get a jiffy bag and some ice. If you feed raw, hopefully people do, you get like ice packs in with the raw. So just stick the blood sample in on ice, post it to them, call them up, let them know it's coming. What did I have to write? Like my name, email address, dog's name, and just basic stuff. And they just email you back and tell you the details. And it's pretty straightforward, it's very clear to see. And then once you have that Gluten result, so anything over 0.6 or 0.8 for the inflammation markers is a positive gluten sensitivity. And I think my boy was over like 1.8 or something like that, which is really very gluten sensitive. And I only did his blood test because he'd shared a water bowl with another dog who had eaten a cocktail sausage, and it made him so ill for weeks that I thought, I'm going to get this test done now. He had been grain-free, gluten-free, environment managed, everything for over a year, but that one sip of a water bowl was enough to trigger him and make him so poorly. And I think that's also really important to know. Once the dog has had a positive Gluten test, there is a Cambridge research team, and they can, if you email them, they'll send you a swab, and you just do a mouth swab on your dog, post it to them. That then goes into the deep freeze for database collection. We are currently trying to get 10,000 dogs. At the moment, it's only Border Terriers with a positive Gluten test result, and it can be anything from like 0.7 upwards, so anything over, yes. And I think we've got about 2,000 or 3,000 max, so we've got a really big mountain to climb. And it's very difficult to get this genetic test done because people just change the food and just move on with their lives. But actually, for the sake of £100 and £5 next day delivery, recorded post, whatever, you can be a breed guardian and you can help save so many dogs and prevent this from exacerbating in the future. And that fills me with a lot of hope, because at the moment people are just medicating dogs and breeding from them, and I know breeders on Instagram with huge followings that are breeding from broken dogs, and then all the litters are having food sensitivities and their vets don't know, and then they go on and so forth, and it's not doing the breed, these puppies, guardians, any good at all. There's so much that can be done. And if you do have a gluten sensitivity test that is positive, or at the moment any other kind of intolerance, I used to work at a charity and they used to help people with something called a carer's statement. I don't know if anyone's got elderly grandparents or anything. It's just a print-outable piece of paper that you can hand to healthcare professionals or anyone that's working with, I don't know, it was like my nan, about who they are, what conditions they have, what medications they need. Stops you as a person or a carer having to just repeat yourself a million times to everyone. Make sure you've remembered everything. So I created a carer's statement for dogs with CECS, canine epileptoid cramping syndrome, and I'm giving that out for free. And I really want to get it into the hands of trainers and physios and vets and specialists and groomers and everyone that deals with dogs, because it's really important that they understand the severity and how much a little tiny bit can make such a huge detrimental difference to the dog's well-being, even if it was, well meant.
That there was so many great takeaway points there for everyone listening. Even from if you notice something wrong with your dog, taking that video. So even if you as the pet professional have a dog, and actually, I know my clients, they can come in one day and you're like, they're just off. Like, them so well as their owners. And in some cases, you feel like you may even know them more. So if you're ever worried about a behavior change, taking a video so that the owner can then share that with the guardian. I love the terminology there, by the way. Can share it with their vet. And then these testings, like actually just even being aware that there's other options out there, because I think what can be really scary for some people is I can't get into the vet, and even just showing up to the vet is going to cost me how much money. So it's actually just knowing that there's other research bodies out there and other ways that we can do this testing to really help our dogs, because that's all we do, isn't it? We just love dogs. We want to serve them and look after them.
They're just the best, aren't they?
Will you please send over the link so that we can connect this to this talk? So if anyone's listening to
Yes.
this and going, yeah, I definitely need to get that testing done for mine, or I've got a Border Terrier, or I know someone that's got a Border Terrier that's having these struggles, we can then get them connected with you.
Yes, I'd absolutely love to. It'd be my pleasure to be able to help more people with more dogs, whether it's a Border Terrier cross. It's also really common in Shepherds, Labradors, Papillons, any terrier except a Sealyham Terrier. It's the only terrier breed it hasn't been seen in. So
Interesting.
Welsh's Irish, things like that. Irish Setters, Lancashire Heelers. There's lots of different breeds. Labradors that you think, they just eat anything. I have seen Labradors with horrendous intolerances, and the parents just aren't necessarily as interested in me as me in their dog's well-being. It's really hard being a pet parent.
It was just how important it is as a pet parent to get these checks done.
So important, and it's not expensive. And if the vet says it's expensive, it doesn't have to be. And I think that's what's really important. And you get the data, so you get the information, you know how to move forwards. And then I've got resources on my website. So I wrote an article this week called, oh gosh, say your dog's gluten intolerant, now what? And just because it's not a death sentence, I think some people think that, it can be misconstrued as fear mongering, or making people think that they're doing the wrong thing for their dog, when actually I know that they're not. They're trying their best, but it's not a death sentence. These dogs can live really long and healthy lives, just like people with celiac, as long as it's managed, and you just have to know how to manage it, basically.
Yeah. Oh, Lana, thank you so much. That's absolutely
Thank
been
you.
brilliant. And yeah, send us all over the links. Is there any last message or anything you want to drive home before we say goodbye?
um no, just thank you so much for having me. And I'm just really, I never thought that having my broken dog would lead me here, but it really is a pleasure to share my knowledge with people. And I'm really passionate about this to a detriment sometimes. And if anyone would like to find out more, then I talk a lot about it on my Instagram, which is soco.fairydogmother, and Augustus's Instagram, which is at Augustus Border. He's also on Facebook, and so am I, but I share different stuff on there. And you can subscribe to my articles so you get a notification when I've been busy working and got some new data or information. And I think the other thing that's really important to know when we're talking about the villi is with the microbiome. I've been working on Augustus's microbiome for 6 months, and it really changed my life. And I didn't think that a few herbs could make such a profound difference on his well-being, his behavior, his ability to not trigger stack and manage his emotions better, to be able to tolerate more foods and things that he would be normally intolerant to, especially after everything he's been through. And actually, at the Natural Dog Expo last year, I did manage to jump on Dr. Carol Hughes from Biome for Pets. And I said, it's really lovely to meet you, blah, 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 blah. But there's lots of dogs with this gluten intolerance. And she just said, okay, that's quite interesting as a fellow terrier mum. And so I've been working with her, and she has the first batch she handmade gluten-free versions and rosemary-free versions for dogs with paroxysmal dyskinesia, whether it's gluten sensitivity or not. And, to find a brand and a person that has so much science and data and knowledge to be able to support dogs and to hand make the first batch, she didn't expect it to be such a huge sale on the product. She had no idea how many dogs were suffering from this. And now she said that she's so glad that she's made it because she's been able to help so many more dogs. So
I love that.
microbiome is the way forwards. Everything starts in the gut, and it can really complement any kind of training or behavior work that anyone else is doing. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so, so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and we are absolutely buzzing to get all of those links so we can carry on this amazing research that you and the team over at the Natural Dog Expo are doing for our dogs of the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.